Okay, so welcome to our first class of conflict resolution. Your course code is BCP 2208, not 2203, 2208. And the purpose of this course, or the objectives of this course, is to help you learn, practice, and follow a process of resolving conflict so that you can be more confident in handling interpersonal or workplace conflict. You'll also be able to find out your preferred style of resolving conflict, and you will be able to do that because you'll have become more aware of the different styles of resolving conflict. And hopefully by the end of this course unit, you'll also be able to follow a step-by-step process of mediating conflict between two parties. Mediating, you're coming in as a facilitator to help two other parties to resolve their conflict. And this course unit is actually a very important part of your journey to becoming community psychologists, because one of the things that you'll do a lot of as community psychologists is to help people either in a workplace or in relationships, marriages, and what have you, parents and children, to come to a common understanding, that is resolving conflict. It may not be that maybe they have quarreled directly, although it can be that. It may not be that they have quarreled directly. It might be that maybe this family needs to come to an agreement on how to move together or move forward as a family, but they have some conflict. They are not able to understand each other very well and come to a common conclusion. It might be that you're handling something else. Let's say, you're doing HIV counseling and one of your clients comes in, and on top of the HIV counseling that you have been doing, they are also having a conflict with maybe their spouse or their child or someone really, really important to their journey, to their recovery journey, to their HIV management journey. So you will need to bring in the issues of conflict resolution. It might be within a school. Maybe you're the school counselor and there is a disagreement between some students, okay? And you need to bring them to a round table, or it might be a disagreement between members of staff and students. So you come in as a third party, you're the counselor, and you are trying to help them come to a common understanding. So that means that you have to be very familiar with different styles of conflict resolution. When you're familiar with the different styles of conflict resolution, you can decide, you can notice, how are my clients approaching conflict? What are their styles of conflict resolution? And how does that affect the possibility that we shall be able to come to a common understanding? When you are aware of the things that we are going to talk about during this lecture, it will help you to be more open to helping people resolve conflict. And it will also help you to be more open to you yourself resolving the conflicts that you have with other people. Okay, so I'll briefly go through our course outline. We'll have the introduction, and this is what we are going to cover today. So help us God. We'll look at different definitions of conflict. Conflict resolution is a course unit or a topic that has been done by so many different disciplines. It's not only in psychology, it has been done by several disciplines. You're going to find conflict resolution among our neighbors in the Department of Peace and Conflict. You'll find conflict resolution among political scientists. You'll find conflict resolution among other disciplines. That is why we need to look at different definitions of conflict according to different disciplines. And that is, and even as we look at the different definitions of conflict resolution, we shall also look at different kinds of conflict, not only from the psychological point of view, but there are different classifications. You remember that word from your O-level biology? Classifications of kinds of conflict that have been proposed by different people, again, by peace and conflict people, by political scientists, maybe by organizational psychologists or organizational managers or human resource people. So each of these disciplines and researchers, they have brought to us different classifications of the kinds of conflict. That's why we shall see that they are many. Why are they many? To give you several different ways of understanding how conflict can be looked at, such that when you come to practice as a community psychologist, you have different tools or different methods that you can draw from. Okay, I will tell you right from the start that the slides that I am going to be using while we are on the online class are only a summary of what you will find in your notes. The notes are a little bit more detailed. Someone mentioned when we had our first class that sometimes the English is too complicated. We do not aim to have complicated English, but we also need to have a certain level of English that helps us to bring out exactly what we are trying to talk about. But these are your notes. It is very okay for you to, if you find a word that you do not understand while you're reading, you can ask your colleague, or you can actually have a dictionary and find out what this word means. So again, the notes are going to be a lot more detailed than the PowerPoint slides. The slides are only being used to facilitate the process of discussion while we are in the class. So continuing with the course outline, we shall look at the value of conflict. Some people think conflict is all bad. No, conflict is very natural, and conflict can actually have some value. We shall also look at the conflict process. Sometimes we think that when we start quarreling or when we see people quarreling, that is all there is to conflict. But in actual sense, way before, sometimes it is months before the quarrel that we can see. We talk about overt, or overt means observable. And observable is the things that we can see. So long before the quarrel that we can see, where people come to exchange words or they go into give each other the silent treatment, those things that we can see, there has been a conflict process that started. And even after the things that we can see stop, people are no longer fighting or they are no longer quarreling, the conflict process might actually be continuing. So we shall talk about the conflict process. We shall also look at conflict and problem-solving methods. Again, here we shall look at different ways of approaching this. Again, why do we look at different methods? Because conflict resolution as a subject has been studied, has been contributed to by different disciplines. We'll also look at the language of conflict and problem solving. A big part of conflict resolution is communication. And communication is sometimes done with words, which are part of language. Sometimes it is nonverbal, but that is still communication. You can actually be speaking without opening your mouth. So those are some of the things that we shall look at under the language of conflict and problem solving. We'll also look at personal styles of conflict resolution, and here you will be able to track yourself and find out what is my style of conflict resolution. It might be a poor style. Okay, it might be a good style or it might not be a very good style. So you assess yourself and see what kind of conflict resolver am I? Which ways do I usually take on? And how can I make it better? We'll also look at attitudes and problem solving. When we are trying to resolve conflicts, our attitudes come into play so much that it might stop us. Our attitude might stop us from resolving conflict, because if I have a negative attitude towards an individual, one, I might not be interested in living in peace and harmony with them. So even if I say, oh, Bambi, I'm a community psychologist, I cannot stay in conflict with people, still, because of my negative attitude, I will not go that distance. I will not go as far as I would have if my attitude was positive. Or because of people's attitudes, their efforts towards problem solving or resolving conflict might be undermined. Now you see, they are really trying, but there's this attitude problem that has not yet been sorted out. But there is also the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin says that if somebody has a negative attitude towards me, or if I think that so-and-so has a negative attitude towards me, everything that they do, even when they are trying to be friendly, even when they are genuinely trying to resolve the conflict, the attitude issue will still remain and it will be haunting me. So everything that I see from their efforts will be filtered through what I think their attitude is towards me. The second last topic we shall look at is space as a factor in conflict resolution. Space can trigger conflicts. Space as in how much space people have. For example, Buganda Kingdom has been so much in the news of recent because of their land issues. That's the concept in which I'm talking about, space. Space can trigger conflict as people fight for space, but space can also contribute to conflict resolution. When you find two young boys fighting and you separate them and you put them in different corners to calm down, you're actually using space as a factor in conflict resolution. When you ask someone to, you know what, take a walk, remove yourself from this space. When you actually remove yourself from the space where you have been at loggerheads with someone, where you have been fighting or shouting at each other, and you just remove yourself physically, it can help to tone down the conflict. And our last topic for this semester will be changing the conflict resolution skills. And this is a very practical thing that you will want to learn. So that will be our course. Your assessment, as usual, will be coursework and or tests, as you will see in the notes that I will put at the photocopier. It will be either a coursework or a test or both. And coursework will be out of 30. And your exam will be out of 70, okay? I see no reason why someone should not go to the exam with at least 25%. So it's very important that you do well in the coursework. I'm going to make every effort to give you your coursework question well in time so that you can work on it, and you will submit it long before we do the exam, because I need to mark your coursework and give you your marks so that you know how you are faring before you do your exam. But once the exam starts, my friends, I am telling you now, once exams start, I cannot give anything like a markup, my notes are missed, the group leader did not write my name, etc. Yes, I have not been teaching for 3 years, but before that study leave, I taught for 12 years, maybe 10 years. So whatever excuse, believe me, that people can come up with, I have heard it. okay? And I have dealt with it. So let us put more energy in doing what we are supposed to do, and instead of putting energy in finding excuses, okay? So yeah, that will be our course unit. You will find that the notes are many, but they are also kind of generic. Why are they sort of general? Is because, and why are they many? Is because right now I know you're more interested in passing the course unit, but after you have your community psychology degree, you are going to go out into the world and you will be practicing community psychologists. So you will need these notes and the references that are in your notes to actually continuously build up your skills. So these notes are to help you now and later. You'll find a lot of references. References because I am not reinventing the wheel. I am bringing to you something that other people have worked on. And the ethical way to do that is to say, where am I getting this material from? Is it from the internet? Is it from a book? Is it from a manual? Is it from someone's speech? Is it, okay? So that's why you will see a lot of names, but it's unlikely, okay? It is unlikely that I will require you to remember those names, for example, for an exam. But I write them for you now because later, as a community psychologist, you will find that people take you more seriously, and you also will find yourself doing it more often, that when you're talking about a certain principle, you are able to actually say, so-and-so says this. It will actually even come to you subconsciously, the way you talk about Freud and Skinner and all these people. So the names are important. Don't get frustrated with those references. It's unlikely that I will ask you to tell me names in the exam. I know that's what you're really interested in. How do I pass the exam? Okay. It's unlikely that I will ask you for names in the exam. You will also find a number of models. These models are supposed to help you understand what we are talking about. Okay. And sometimes we take one look at a model and we panic and we say it's all over, this course unit is so difficult. No, take a look, take a second look and see if it can actually make sense to you. I think this is a very important course unit. I think it's a very interesting course unit. There is no reason why you should fail it. Do we have any questions before I proceed with the gist of what we came to do this semester? Do you have any questions so far? Yes, Jacob.
Thank you. Are we going to be having evening lectures?
Go ahead, Jacob.
Yes, I'm asking, are we going to also be having options for studying in the evening, still online?
Jacob, your hand is raised. Would you like to unmute yourself and give us your contribution?
Hello, can you hear me?
It might also be a network issue, in which case you can go ahead and type your question in the chat. I will do my best to attend to it. Anyone else that has a question, please also go ahead and type it in the chat. You can hear Jacob. Unfortunately, I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Let me try to put on my headphones and see if that will help my.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead, Jacob.
Thank you. What I was wondering about, this lecture is in the morning and we have some evening students. I'm one of them. Will you be able to be scheduling evening as well? Most of our colleagues are not on the call.
Okay. I actually need to ask, what has your experience been with morning and evening lectures in the past? With the other lecturers, what has been happening?
We do both, although some lecturers just refuse, but it always affects us. And to the importance of this, what you've just explained, I would request that you consider.
As I sit here today, I'm quite happy to do both, but as a plan B, I am also recording the classes so that if anything happens with the onlineization and the return to what has become the new normal. Teddy, please mute yourself for someone who is not looking at Teddy. With the return to, okay, what is now becoming the new normal, and with the online classes, there is a lot of changes that have been going on in the universities. So we need to keep our ears on the ground, but my pledge to you is that I will make sure that to the best of my ability, you do not miss out on any of the classes, okay? Of course, I still have to wait to hear from the rest of the department as to what is going to happen. But I know, for example, that I will meet the evening class tomorrow. And also when it comes to the online link, the link that I sent you today is the link that you will use for all the online lectures, and that is that day class until you come back for physical lectures. So there's no need to worry, where is the link, what is the link, etc. We are going to be using the same link. Okay, any other questions? Do we have any other questions before we start? Okay, so I want to encourage you to participate as best as you can while we go through this course unit. When I ask for examples, I will be giving examples because this is not a course unit that we have developed ourselves. A lot of this material has been developed in the West, but we need to localize it. We need to understand it from the local context, and that's where the examples come in. And I'm the kind of lecturer who always asks, you to give local examples, even when it comes to your exam, because we are supposed to test you for knowledge and also application. I will ask you, you can expect that I will ask you to give relevant examples, even in the exam. You will, Charikunda Anna is asking if I will give you soft copy notes. I will not give you soft copy notes, but I will put a hard copy at the department that you can pick up at your earliest convenience. Why am I not giving you soft copies? Is because there've been so many reports about people carrying in the notes into I don't know, inappropriate places, carrying them into the exam. I know that doesn't stop people from carrying their phones and their whatever into the exam. So unless you're going to take screenshots of the notes and you put them on your phone, well, that will have been your choice, but I will have done my part on my end, that if quality assurance asks, I will say that this is what I did. Okay, so the notes will not be on soft copy. They will be a hard copy available at the department as soon as you can pick it up. But this recording will be available as soon as tomorrow, only because I need to convert it after the class. It would have been available immediately, but I will have to convert it after the class and then upload it. I don't know if you have seen a recording of my self-introduction. I shared a YouTube link with one of you. So these lectures will always be available as YouTube links, and I'll keep sharing those. If you do not access it, please send a message to your class representative, let them access it and share the link with you. How does that sound? Can I get some feedback on that?
This is Miss Mike.
Yes, Mike.
On the point of the method of how we are going to receive the notes, it's really challenging because we have people that are doing internship in like in Guru up countries. So how are they going to get out notes when they are not in soft copies?
You may not have the notes. I do not believe that it is going to harm you irreparably if maybe 5 or some number of you do not have the notes this week, although I will avail them this week, okay? What you will have available for you is these recordings, and that is why I encourage each and every one of you to come to class so that we can have the discussion. But as I stand right now, the agreement has been avail the notes in hard copy, because we have some of our colleagues that are spending a lot more time trying to find ways to beat the system. But I encourage you that if you slow down and take a moment, take a breath, you will find that your energy is best used in actually being in class and attending, and then you can have the notes and read for your exam or your tests or prepare for your coursework as and when you can get them. But as for the classes, they're going to be very interactive, and you will have an opportunity to actually learn. All I am asking from you is to come to class, be present, make the time to be in the class. And as a facilitator, I will ensure that at least from my side, learning is delivered. Okay. All right, so it's coming to 9 o'clock. Let's actually get into the gist of conflict resolution. Okay, what do I do with this? There's someone who is unmuted. Guys, please make sure when you enter the class, or if you drop off the call and you come back in, you mute yourself, because it gets very irritating to the rest of the class. And the person that I have assigned as the co-host, please make sure that people stay muted. Will you do that? Watch out to make sure that people stay muted. Do we have Christopher on the call right now? Maybe I can assign more than one co-host so that you can also help us with.
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to assign you as a co-host as well, so that you can help us with the muting and what have you, okay? So I have 2 people to help ensure silence from the rest of the class. All right, so let us start. Conflict. Raise your hand, or if you don't know how to raise your hand, if you have had a conflict with anybody. From your understanding, you don't have to tell us what type of conflict, but raise your hand or type 1 in the chat if you have had a conflict with anyone in the month of June? If you've had a conflict in the month of June with anyone, type 1 in the chat or raise your hand. If you've had a disagreement, any kind of conflict in the month of June, not even May 30th, but just this month of June, we are barely halfway through it. If you've been in any kind of conflict, type 1 in the chat or raise your hand. Eight people only? Only 8 people out of a class of how many? 40 about? That means two things. Either some people are not listening or they are living on a different planet. I'm still waiting to get responses. If you have been in a conflict in the month of June, type 1 in the chat. Let me say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 10 people. Okay, we'll go with that. But you see, that tells me something, guys. And I'm hoping that we can work together on this one, that if you have logged on to the class, actually be present so that we spend more time and energy on what we actually have to learn rather than spending more time on finding excuses as to why things have not gone the way that they should. Anyway, based on what I have seen, we are all familiar with conflict, right? We are all familiar with conflict because it's a natural part of life and it occurs in all human relationships. And some people are better at solving conflict than others. Some people are better at making sure that conflict doesn't even happen. And maybe that could be a reason why some people didn't even raise their hands. They have not been in conflicts because they are very good at preventing conflicts from happening. Other people are good at, they may not be able to prevent conflicts from happening, but they are able to prevent these conflicts from escalating. They are the peacemakers, like the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. They are able to, yes, a conflict will happen because it is natural, it's a natural part of life, but people have become very good at stopping these conflicts from becoming really big. On the other hand, there are those people that are just so good at causing conflict. And usually it is because they are going to benefit. You argue, you complain, but this person has dropped a bomb in the middle of you and they sit back and watch the space because they are going to benefit. The kind of divide and conquer people. They know how to disorganize others so that they can benefit, even if that benefit is just to be able to laugh. Okay, some people may have studied the art of causing conflicts. Conflicts can occur between people, right? We shall say that sometimes conflict occurs between two individuals, or it can occur between groups. But conflict can also occur within you, within one individual, because you're faced with two or more conflicting choices. All right. Do we know any people that are good at causing conflict? From this introduction and from the explanation that I have given, have we met people that are very good at causing conflict? You can just say yes. by typing 1 in the chat. Couple,
I will not say,
little brothers. Yes, go ahead. You can contribute. You can speak.
I will not say yes. I'll say there are people whose DNA, I think, was created to just be causing conflict. They never have peace. Like, good Lord.
They are just there. They never have peace, and they never let other people have peace. Someone is talking about little brothers. Bambi, your little brothers, do they know that you think they are conflict causers? And couples, for some reason, I don't know why, even when people are supposed to be at peace, you will find couples having conflict. But then you come in and you take sides and they go and solve their conflicts, and then you become the bad one, you know? Some people are talking about politicians. Yeah, politics has been called a dirty game. So, well, there is also that. And then someone is talking about sadists. They just like to cause conflict. Oswald, tell us about full figure. Oswald, what happens with full figure?
He likes attacking people.
Boatuka, what happens? What does she do? Here, I'm supposed to be pretending that I don't know who full figure is. Like, when did she cause a conflict? Full figure wawe.
Like, she attacks you, and then when you tend to attack her too, then it ends in court. Like, what's happening with Sefuko?
What's happening? Lumpe, tell me. I've been off TV for a long time. What's the story there?
Madam, I just got the headline. But those people who are always on TikTok, they can't tell you more.
People, yeah, I see people laughing. Also, put us in on the joke. What happened with full figure?
Like, they were full figure was the first person to start the bad conversation, and then when they started exchanging, more was, and then that doctor is now in court, and yet full figures down who started that bad conversation. Now you can see.
Okay, so it is full figure that started the conversation, and she's the one suing.
Yes, and yet he's now making the boy to suffer for nothing.
Bam, the poor boy. Are we all on the boys? Rita is telling you that this time full figure is right. Because Auntie Muganyo dumpo bulungi, so I don't know what the boy did. But this tells me that, yeah, we have an idea of what I am talking about. There, we can relate to the idea that some people are good at stopping conflict and some people are good at starting up conflicts. Let's look at some definitions of the word conflict. The word conflict comes from, originally, it wasn't an English word. It was, someone is saying, I inbox Balumpe. I'm not going to invest in Lugambo like that, but thank you for the offer. Anyway, so the word conflict is derived from a Latin word, confligere. It means to strike together, okay? Even when you think about the physical sense of it, it means two things, they are trying to come into the same space, so they move that towards each other and they end up clashing, okay? And when they end up clashing, two things, one thing might happen, one or two things might happen. They probably will hit each other and they will separate. If they are hard enough, they will separate without any of them getting any damage. Or they might hit each other and they will end up in the same space when they are mashed together, or they might end up being damaged, okay? So two things trying to occupy the same space at the same time. That is in the physical sense. But even when you think about it in the psychological sense, you might realize that the same principles may apply. Two people trying to get into the same spot, for example, of guild president, okay? Same spot they are trying to vie for. And when they clash, either peacefully through elections or by other means, they might, chances are they are not both going to be guild president. So they will not apply, they will not get into the same spot. They might end up, either one person becomes the guild president and the other loses, or if they decide not to go through the election route, or if people have issues with the election route, there might be very many clashes and there will be a lot of destruction from the clash, okay? You'll find that scholars don't exactly, I need to keep in touch with this chart because sometimes the partners we date can annoy. Find others. Anyway, you'll find that there is no agreement among scholars on the precise meaning of the term conflict. That's why we are going to look at several different definitions of the term conflicts. You have Kenneth Boulding defining conflict as a form of competition where the competing parties, they both recognize that they have mutually incompatible goals. They recognize that none of their goals can be achieved if the other person's goals have also been achieved, right? Can you give me a moment? I need to close a screen on my laptop so that we do not keep getting distracted by notifications. Do we still see my screen with the definitions or has it disappeared?
We can still see it.
You can still see my screen. Okay. Okay, but I can't resist this advice and these comments. Sorry, Esther. Try either a pure dark person or a pure brown one if the partner you have annoys you. Now, I think Oswald has a bit of an idea about Esther's partner. Is Esther's partner, what do you mean by pure brown? I know I'm Chotala. Okay, I don't know, but Esther Magezigago Togamanti, they did not advise you. Munange ninokubera n'olwali. Anti I'm a psychologist who works with young people. You're the ones who have taught me this lwali. Okay, you're seeing the screen. That is very good. So going back to our notes, Kenneth Boulding, he looks at conflict as a form of competition in which the competing parties recognize that they have mutually incompatible goals. By mutually incompatible, we mean that both of us know that if my aim is achieved, then yours will be lost, will not be achieved. If your aim is achieved, then mine will not be achieved. So we end up fighting so that it is our different aims that are achieved. But as we shall see, there might be problems with this definition. Let us look at what other people describe conflict as. Louis Kosa tells us that conflict is a struggle over values and claims to scarce resources. These resources might be status, they might be power, or any other resources. And while these two people are struggling over these resources, they want to neutralize, injure, or eliminate their rival. Bagendere dala, we want to completely take out the competition. A story is told about one of our former presidents. None of you, I'm sure, if in your age saw him as president. Even I didn't see him as president. But we've had stories about Idi Amin. And there are so many hilarious stories about Bambi Idi Amin. You really wonder if he said 3/4 of the things that people attribute to him. But anyway, there is a story that he used to, Ugandan boxers used to go to compete on the world scene, okay? And the good president is said to have told these boxers that when you go into the ring, to avoid these things of cheating, you just knock them out completely and kill them. That way there will be, it will be clear the person did not win because the opponent is dead. So I think Louis Kosa had a similar idea that the opponents are trying to neutralize, injure, or completely eliminate their rivals. And from Kosa's definition of conflict, this can be anything from fights in a bar, those who hang out in bars might tell us, or between tribes and nations. So Kosa's definition gives us a long, a wide variety to describe different conflicts where people are trying to neutralize, injure, or eliminate their rivals. Shaima, you know Idi Amin? Okay, I think then you might be the one to tell us if we are telling lies about him with the stories that we are repeating. Okay, so let's continue with the definitions. There are quite a number actually. So we have Park and Burgess, who say that conflict is always conscious. Conscious is what you have in your mind that you also know is in your mind, what you are aware of. Park and Burgess say that conflict is always conscious. The opposite of conscious is subconscious. And they say that conflict leads to very deep emotions, and it brings out a lot of concentration of both attention and effort. People put a lot of attention and effort in this conflict. So according to Park and Burgess, conflict cannot be subconscious, okay? But he also talks about competition, which is in, Park and Burgess also talk about competition, which is a little bit different for them from conflict. They say that competition is continuous and impersonal. When two people are competing, they compete continuously, but it is not personal. But they also say that, on the other hand, conflict is intermittent. Intermittent means something that starts and stops. Okay? Intermittent refers to something that starts and stops. It is not there continuously. So Park and Burgess say that conflict is intermittent, it starts and stops, but it is also personal. So those of us who say, don't take it personal, this is just a competition. They are trying to differentiate between personal and impersonal. Let me ask, has any of us ever had that nasty experience from someone who tells you, but don't take it personal, I am just trying to be, it's a normal competition, don't take it personal. Honestly, even the way they are saying it, they are really trying to provoke you to take it personal. Has anyone had that experience? Because me, I meet that a lot from people. You don't take it personal. But in actual sense, who of us here has ever participated in some kind of competition, like maybe you're competing for maybe a leadership position and etc., and people are telling you, Chikulu, you take things personal. In fact, they say you take things personally. This is just a competition, and it can be really annoying. Shaima, tell us. Shaima, what happened? tell us about your experience.
One day we were in game, so we had a friendly match. We lost. Okay, we lost the match. So someone told us, "Don't take it personal, dear." But the way they express the thing, banagenga. Bakulagira ddala that take it personal, dear. You have lost.
I like how you're using the word dear. Banange people on social media have spelled that word for me. You see someone saying something really, really annoying. Nenga bagaseko ka dear. Nti munange si mu bubi ba dear. But what they are saying, you're really seeing. You're supposed to take it personal. So like I told you, I'm a Muganda, okay? And I think, was it over the weekend, the inter-clan football matches started, okay? Shaima, bakugambye yo Arsenal ye kusumbua. Anyway, so still, it's a good thing I'm giving an example about football, okay? So in my tribe over the weekend, the competitions between clans, Mupira Gwewika, started. So the people who opened in, I think it's Mupira Gwewika, because we had the dog clan and the Engo is what? Is it leopard? They were the ones who were playing. So at the end of the day, Bambi and Mbwa, Nebajikuba, the Mbwa clan, dog clan lost. Yeah, you're right, Nahia, that it involves a lot of sarcasm. Either if you're weak-hearted, Bambi, you will die in that movie. Anyway, so the leopard clan beat or won the dog clan. So after the match had ended, people were like, man, this movie, as in dear. It was just a competition. Don't take it personal. And then in the middle of telling people don't take it personal, someone posted a picture of a physical leopard that was dragging a dog, a very physical dog, and it was taking it away, and not gently at all. So you're telling people don't take it personal, but at the same time you're making fun of them. You see people who are good at pushing conflict, honestly. So I don't know. I think we are already putting holes in Park and Burgess's definition of conflict as not being as conflict being personal, whereas competition is impersonal. Thank you for those examples. Thank you, Shaima. That was a good example. And then according to Robert North, he says that a conflict emerges whenever two or more people or groups, okay? So it can be people, individuals, or it can be groups of people. They are seeking to possess the same object. They are seeking to occupy the same space, or so space might be big, okay? Like maybe a country or, a large space, or they might be seeking to occupy a certain, position. All right, so that's how conflict comes about. Or they might be having incompatible goals. They are aiming for something. They want a certain idea to come through, but each group feels like their goal is the best. Or they might have the same goal, but they have incompatible means of achieving this goal. And so they become conflicted. I want someone akitegedde kuluna tokubira Yesu engalo ez'amaanyi, but it's always a good idea okubira Yesu engalo ez'amaanyi. But when it comes to incompatible means, the goal is the same, but you disagree on the means for achieving that goal. Think about it. I will keep quiet. I will shut up for like half a minute, and I want you to think about how this idea can apply to a conflict between some students and the teacher on exams. One goal, but there is a conflict on how that goal is going to be achieved. Think about it. How can that be applied to a potential conflict between teachers and students? Let me shut up and you think. And whoever is ready, you unmute or you put up your hand and we shall have a discussion. The question is, North is saying that sometimes people have the same goal, but the method of achieving that goal, they are not agreeing on it. So they get into conflict. And remember, we said that in this course unit, we are going to have some application. So I want you to apply that idea, that principle, to a conflict that might occur between teachers and students when it comes to exams.
Once upon a time, there was a lecturer.
Time. Yes, Jacob.
Once upon a time, there was a lecturer in School of Psychology who wanted to agree with the students on the mode of setting the exams. So she went to the class and asked, "What do you want?" Guys voted. When she came to evening, people also voted. But remember, these classes had to be one. So you can't set differently for day and set differently for evening. So the conflict started from there.
Okay.
Because the day decided differently and evening also decided differently, yet it was the same goal.
Okay, same goal to have an exam that the students have agreed on. Thank you, Jacob. That's a good example. Then the conflict came in because the day and evening students made different choices. That's a good example. I had actually not thought about it that way. That is why it is always good for the teacher not to think that they are the ones with all the answers. Also think about it this way. Both the teacher and the students, the goal is to pass the exam, right? Do you think there are lecturers who want you to fail? Now, for them, their goal is to fail the students. No, right? So both for the teacher and the student, the goal will be passing the exam. Normally, how does that lecturer want students to pass the exam? What do lecturers want you to do? They want you to read, sit for the exam, write the answers, correct answers, and you will pass. Not so. Some students, not the ones in this class, the ones in this class are good, but some students, how do they sometimes want to pass the exam? If you are a real Ugandan and you are a very honest person, tell us. How do some students want to pass the exam? That might be different from the lecturer's version of how an exam should be passed. What do some people want to do? Through cheating.
We want to cheat.
They want to cheat. So they are, yes, Mike and Dorcas, you're right. They spend so much time putting energy, mukutasa course, that's what they call it, tutasa course. So they want to enter with some notes. You find someone wearing a jacket, you even find someone putting on a cannula because they want someone to look at them and say, Bambi, this one is sick, so we should let them leave their jacket on. And when Bambi, if you open the jacket, there are notes, there are cheats. See, someone is actually moving around with their whole batch of notes. Now when we are in the class. Other people want to enter with their phones. Other people want to sit with someone who will allow them to cheat. So when they are doing the exam, the person pretends that they are reading through and they put the paper up. We want to kutaasa the course. We have the same goal, passing, but the lecturer and some students disagree on the means of passing. Same goal, different means. Tell me how a conflict will not arise in that case. Madam oli muzibu. Bwentuka. Okay, sorry. I understand people don't understand Luganda. Jacob, how am I difficult? Because I'm talking about the ways that people cheat. I tend to
How did you know all that?
Before I became a lecturer, I also studied community psychology. I did not cheat, but that doesn't mean that I was blind. Then I taught for more than 10 years. 10 years ago, which class were you? Had even started school. So I've been seeing all these tricks for all this time. But even when I've been on study leave, I was on social media. Towards exams, someone puts up an advert. If you want to sit next to me in the exam, just sitting, not talking, this amount. For exchanging papers, this amount. For just raising the paper, this amount. The most expensive one is for exchanging. Also sitting for you, there is another. Oh, and there is also one more option. After we write the exam, there are those who advertise that they can threaten the lecturer for you when they are marking so that they give you high marks. In fact, someone said, why should you fail? Just because the lecturer said what you did not read. So people have all sorts of tricks. Same goal, passing. But the conflict comes in when we do not have an agreement on how this passing should happen. Okay, let's look at one more definition. And then we shall move away from the definitions. Nali sirina kitengo. I was just really good at doing the right thing at the right time. You should try it. It will work for you. Finally, Mark and Snyder, they talk about conflict. They don't really give us a definition of conflict, but they identify distinguishing characteristics of conflicts. One, that they exist between two or more parties. Okay. Two, that the interaction arises from a condition of resource scarcity, opposition scarcity. We remember that we have looked at, for all the definitions of conflict that we have looked at, there has been that thing of scarcity among the things that people are competing for. They engage in mutually opposing actions. Okay, they are opposing each other. It's very rare that people will have conflict when they are not on different sides. Sometimes people are having conflict and they realize, first, wait, we are actually arguing on the same side, and then the conflict ends. Their behavior is intended to damage, injure, or eliminate the other party. And finally, their interactions are overt. Remember, we said overt means observable. Observable means we can see it, okay? And they can be measured or evaluated by outside observers. Sometimes I have problems with these definitions because if Mark and Snyder, for example, say that people's conflicts can be evaluated by outside observers, sometimes you don't really know the truth. You don't really know what is happening, especially in fights among married people or among couples. When they come and tell you the story, you can easily think usually it is us women who seem the most innocent because everyone knows bananga basajja nga babonya abakazi nga tulabye. In fact, batuyita nabazira. we are heroes because tugumira bingi. Okay? But in reality, buuza counselor. In reality, there are some women who are very clever, and they are the ones who are causing the conflict. So an outside observer may not be able to actually evaluate this conflict. So Dorcas is asking, let me first read your question. Then I first do lugezi and tell you something about why you're asking, and then I will answer your question. Excuse me, madam. About the definitions, do I choose the best I'm able to define, or I need to have a clue about all of them? That is the question. Let me say it again. Madam, or madam, depending on your nursery school teacher. Do I choose the best I'm able to define, or I need to have a clue about all of them? This is where this question is coming from. And I really feel sorry for you guys. You have grown up in a system that teaches you how to pass exams. It teaches you how to answer questions. And it is more important to answer, to be able to pass the exam, than to actually understand. That is the truth. That is my quarrel with government of Uganda. Our system trains exam takers, exam passers, rather than people that are actually able to understand. So when Dorcas is the one who asked, but I know many of us are actually concerned about this, that do I need to just learn one and or do I need to have a clue about all of them? That is where this problem is coming from. And trust me, I'm not even blaming you. I'm blaming the system. But in blaming the system, I'm also saying to you that you can actually make a difference. Okay? Let us pay a lot more attention to becoming better community psychologists. Someone said first class, they want to be like me, Webakula. The only way you're going to be like me is by putting your attention on gaining knowledge rather than how do I pass? I know it is scary, but if you put your attention on gaining the knowledge and the skills and answering these questions, when I ask for examples, when you engage in that discussion, you will learn better. Passing the exam will just be an added bonus. Okay, yeah, I know it is very important, but it will be a natural end result because you have understood. So the short answer to your question, Dorcas, is it's good to have a clue about all of them, to even poke holes in these definitions because you properly understand them. Okay? Let us focus on being able to give at least an example. And you can ask me, Madam, is this example, this is how I'm understanding it, right? This is how I'm understanding this point. Am I right to think like this? That is how we learn. And it is actually possible to learn if we take away the noise of how do I pass? Okay, Dorcas and everybody. So the short answer, it's important to have a clue about all of them, but more than having a clue, find out how you can apply. Does it make sense to you, or do you have problems with this definition? Okay. All right, so I'll take a few questions and then I'll give you a 3 minutes break and we'll move on to the kinds of conflict. My co-hosts, you're losing marks on when it comes to muting people and letting people in. Do we have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to pause and give you a break up to 9:45, and then we shall return and talk about the kinds of conflict. I'm also going to pause. I'm going to stop the recording so that we can have one YouTube recording for definitions, and we'll have another YouTube video for the kinds of conflict. No, I'm not going to stop the recording. I'm going to pause recording. Okay, so let us look at the kinds of conflict. Remember here, we are going to be looking at different classifications of conflict because different scholars have given us different scholars have identified different kinds or types of conflicts. They can be social, intercommunity, a whole list as you see there, and we are going to look at them in more detail. And like I've said, different scholars have classified conflicts differently. So we are going to look at the classifications showing the types of conflict from different scholars. Why do you need to understand these different classifications, or why do you need to have access to information on these different classifications? We say that in your training, in your practice rather, as a psychologist, as a community psychologist, you will have to know different ways of looking at conflict. Because when you know different ways of looking at conflict, you can look at conflicts from different angles. And therefore, the chances are you will better be able to help people work out their conflicts, or you will better be able to manage conflict as an individual. So let us go into the different classifications of conflicts. When I talk about classifications, I'm just talking about the groups, the different groups of types of conflict that each scholar or each author that we are going to look at brought out. We'll start with Quincy Wright. This was a political scientist, and he studied conflict and war, and he identifies 4 types of conflict. He talks about physical conflict, where 2 or more entities or groups or people, okay, are trying to occupy the same space at the same time. They will have a clash. He talks about political conflicts. The word political is related to the word policy. So political conflict happens when, at least according to Quincy Wright, when one group tries to impose its policies on others. A political conflict might arise. And then here is a word that we might have met. The president, the fountain of honor in our country, likes this word, ideology. Sometimes there are ideological conflicts. This is when the conflict is between values, okay, or systems of thoughts. We believe in democracy, and then there are other people who believe in this democracy nonsense. Even the kingdom of God is not a democracy. Dictatorship is better. So that is an ideology. Okay, some people might be believing in God-given rights to rule, and therefore they believe in monarchies. They believe in kings and queens and hereditary rulership. While other people believe that no, human beings need to be allowed to choose their own leaders. Those are ideologies. Some people might believe hard work pays. If you do not want to work, therefore you should not even eat. There are ideologies around hard work. while other people believe, if I can be lucky, then I can also succeed. So the ways that these people are going to approach life is they are going to get into conflict because one person, imagine if it was a couple, the husband or the wife believes in hard work. The other person believes in luck, or they believe in praying only. Their ideologies are different, and therefore they are going to get into conflict. Right finally talks about legal conflicts. These are where controversies, claims, or demands, whatever conflict you're having, it is resolved through legal procedures. You go to court, you look at what the law says, and therefore that is how this is going to be resolved. It means that the kind of conflict that you had is a legal kind of conflict. Okay. Let us look at another classification by Rappaport. He classified 3 different types of conflicts. He talks about fights, games, and debates. Let's go to our chat for a little while. And people, tell me, of the 3 of these, which ones were you involved in secondary school? Let's not talk about university. You might start saying fights and I will start worrying for my physical safety when I have to be on campus with you. Think about your secondary school and type for me in the chat. Which of these conflicts did you get involved in mostly? Is it fights, games, or debates? Or fights and games? Or games and debates? Or fights only? Or games only? Or debates only? Rita, it was debates and games. Gloria, it was debates. Shaima, games and debates. Sarah got involved in debates. Ayevale, games and debates. I was waiting for a boy to say, like Isaac, fights and games, no debating. Dorcas, games. Uma, games and fights. And then the first girl, to be honest, and say fights and games. Mike, you had put up your hand. Go ahead. Namubiru, namubiru mwana wange, omwana w'emmamba gwenna tetaaga okubuulirirako. Fights only. Namubiru mama wange. I think you need to make an appointment and we talk. Someone has said something interesting here. Nahia, debates and some small bullying. We did not talk about bullying, but maybe it was fights. Namale waliwaka mnyumide. Anna, games and fights and debate. Okay. Grace vakusekeredde. Mike, you had your hand up. Do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, you have put it in the chat. Games. Yeah. By the time people are telling me what they were involved in, most probably they have understood what I am talking about. But let us see what Rappaport defines these 3 as. He talks about the distinguishing characteristics between all these 3. Depends on the difference between fights, games, and debates. Depends on how the opponent is viewed, the intent or the intentions or the goals of the different parties, and the rational content of the situation. When we talk about rational content of the situation, we mean how much thought or thinking, rationality goes into this situation and how much of it is just emotion, and usually negative emotion. Okay, so the things, according to Rappaport, that differentiate fights from games and debates is how you view your opponent, the intentions of each party, and the level of rationality or thought processes that go into the situation. So with those in mind, let us see how he distinguishes fights from games, from debates. In a fight, the opponent is viewed as a nuisance. Okay, it's just an annoying fly, or she is just an annoying fly. The intent is to harm them. And the situation has no rationality. There is no thinking. All you are doing is fighting. Whether you're fighting with words, or you're fighting with your fists, or you're fighting with clubs and spades, the point is there is really no rationality. There isn't a lot of thinking going on. You just want to get rid of this annoying nuisance, or at least harm it and crush it completely and get rid of it. That's a fight, according to Rapoport. For a game, you can tell that your opponent is like you, okay? They are footballers. I'm also a footballer, which is really a bad example if I'm using myself, because I don't play any sport. But if it is some kind of game, you know that the other person is a human being like you. The intention is to outsmart them or to outwit them. And apparently the situation is completely rational. So we are really thinking when we are engaged in a game. Is this really true? Tell me about the games that you have been involved in. Is the situation always rational? Are people always thinking in the game? Is it all about thinking, or emotions come in? What is your experience? Those of us that were involved in games, or those of us that enjoy sports, are these situations completely rational? Is it all about thinking, or they are also mostly emotions, jealous emotions, anger? Okay, it is true. At times emotions come in. Yes, like Naomi says. You might start out, let me use an example of two teams, the most famous rivals, Manchester and Arsenal. And I'm saying this because I'm not very good at football, but at least I know a bit of, I know that much, okay? When these teams are going out onto the field, okay, they have spent months planning their game. Rationally, they think through it. And even while they are on the field, they will start out rational, okay? But as things get more and more heated up, emotions start to come in, especially when someone, yes, like Shaima says, when people start to lose, and then the whole field there, that the spectators are making noise and people are abusing each other on social media, mania, what? Emotions come in. And they might get jealous because they want to win. So it starts out rational. And sometimes, if it really, really deteriorates, it might stop being a game and it becomes a fight. And we start beating each other seriously. The spectators leave there spectating and they come into the field, and the thing stops being a game, it becomes a fight. I don't know, sometimes, yes, but together, they understand. I don't know if you have ever played games at home. I remember as a child, we used to play, you start out, it is a game. You agree to kebe, hide and seek, or tepo, or 7 stone. So you all know the rules of the game, and as you're starting to play, you're thinking about the rules of the game. It is a rational process. But as you go along, they have won you over and over, you start to get emotional. What was a game, people start shouting, Nada, she's cheating. Then people who are supposed to be hiding, instead they start telling on each other, so and so is there, and the game might end up into a fight. You started very well, you were playing cards. Then you were thinking through the steps you have to go through to win the help us with the noise. You were thinking through the steps rationally that you need to win the game. But as the game comes to a close, or you notice someone is cheating, the rationality goes out of the window and it becomes a fight. And finally, with debate, with debate, the opponent is viewed as important, but they have a different point of view. So they are different from us. I'm an opposer, the opponent is a proposer. Or I'm a proposer and the opponent is an opposer. So they are also human beings, but they are different and they are important, because can we have a debate when there is no proposer or opposer? Both parties are important, but they are different. In a game, the opponent is viewed like yourself. They are football players, I'm a football player. Debates, they are important, but they are different. And the intent here is to convince the other party. When you're debating with someone, you're trying to convince them. It might not be a formal debate, but it might be a debate among your classmates who have a different point of view. What you're trying to do is to convince them. And we presume that the situation is rational. Why is Rapoport bringing in the word presumably? We want to think, and the truth is it's not always the case, that when people are debating, they have researched, they have understood what they are trying to bring across, and they have thought about it, and it is a rational process. Presumably, because sometimes someone would come up and say, these are facts. You've been on your WhatsApp groups when people are arguing. Someone says, let me show you the facts, and the facts. When they bring out the facts, they are, indeed they are facts, but in that person's own world only. They bring out so-called facts that make no sense whatsoever. While I was explaining this debate and talking about the intention of convincing the opponent, him or her, I thought about some vibing situations where the guy is trying to convince the girl that I am the best boyfriend for you. Or the girl is trying to convince, these days, Banange girls, we are also dry. We are the ones who go out and convince the man, surely. Eh? I think I saw something on social media where someone was complaining about Hadassah. I'm very sorry, Bambi, if that was you who was crying. But they told us, Tambuza Postieno, Pakarene Tukaku, over what was the boy's name? What does she have that I don't have? Trying to convince this young man that I am the best person for you. Is it always a rational? Is it always a rational explanation? Those reasons that people give in that situation. Think about it and tell us. In the meantime, Nahia is asking, is the word rational the same as cognitive? Or if they have relations, please elaborate. Rational has to do with thinking. Okay, when you're being rational, yes, it has to do with cognition, cognitive, to do with the mind. Okay, it means that someone is thinking, and therefore they are thinking rationally. Whatever they are doing it rationally, as opposed to doing it out of emotion. Remember when people tell you, Tobiteka mu feeling, they are meaning you'd better be rational about this. Yes, rational means correct thinking, but I'm also psychologist enough to know that rational, correct is relative, but yes, rational is to do with thinking, meaning rational involves cognition, yes. It involves the mind part of us, which is our cognitions. Okay? I think that is now clear. I had my example. When someone is trying to vibe a potential partner to convince them to get into a relationship, is there, and and the guy, the other person is saying, I'm not ready for a relationship. And someone is saying, what do you mean ready? What do you mean you're too young? Olinda kunyenyanga kedo. Are they really bringing in, are they really being rational, or we are just presuming them to be rational? Nahia has got the answer she is looking for. A debate's always rational. First, forget the one I've given about relationships and people vibing and convincing others to get into relationships. Maybe that one is making you shy. Atenga mulibana batu. A debates, the debates and argue, okay, debates that we get into, for example, on social media, are they always rational with people and the facts that they give? Rita says they are. Do we all agree with Rita? Okay, if we all agree with Rita, then Nahia, you said no, why? Christine says sometimes they are emotional. Uma, no, they are not. Why? Why do you say they are not? Nahia has raised her hand. Please go ahead, Nahia.
Because not everyone on social media really
Not everyone on social media really
is considerate about others. Like anyone can just wake up in the morning and they grab their phone and post anything, and it calls for attention. They don't mind about how it's going to affect most of the people. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yes, it's true. People start debates on social media. And for you, because you're a psychologist, community psychologist, they taught you to do your research and you actually bring in your point when you've thought about it very well, okay? But then other people show up with their so-called rational argument or debates, and yet they are lying about their facts or they are exaggerating, and they're doing it out of emotion. Christopher says they are intended to be rational, but emotional in the long run. Yes, go ahead.
I don't blame some people for
Sorry, we seem to have lost you.
like I don't blame some people because they do things out of that impulsive kind of thing. Some people don't know what they're actually doing with, so sure. How do you expect them to, I don't know, come up with something sensible, yet they also don't know what they are doing. I don't know, like this is something like that.
Sometimes you don't really blame some people because they are trying to argue a point simply because they really, really believe in it. It's like when people are defending their religion or they're defending their pastor, they will give you all these facts. The outsider will say, those are not real facts, but the person really believes that these are facts. And sometimes because we are angry, we move away from the actual truth and we start focusing on Ngenda kulopa Isaac. Anyway, someone says, sometimes Umar says, they are just emotional, attached to any situation. For example, politics, like the Lubidi saga. I think in the safety of the class, I'll say something about the Lubidi saga. When I first saw that video, it was very difficult for me to see as a parent, you know, but I told myself afterwards that, first wait, Linda, you don't know what you are looking at. And so I kept quiet. I did not comment on it at all. In fact, this is the first time I am commenting on it. And just as I suspected, later someone shows another video of what actually happened inside the bus. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this is nearer to what I suspected was happening, but that doesn't make it any better. Still, our young generation, our children need a lot of help, and you're the people who are going to help them, okay? So it means you also have to take care of your own attitudes and how far you allow your own behavior to go so that you can help the generation that is coming behind you. Isaac, I am going to report you, joking, that they are rational. For example, if the president tells you to eat cassava, if bread is expensive, no comment. That is all I'm going to say about that. Okay, another classification is task conflict, relationship conflict, and value conflict. Task conflict is when we are having disputes over concrete issues, real issues, for example, work assignments. How do we divide up the resources? If we are all working in one office, for example, who needs more printing paper, who needs more ink? So we might have conflicts about such things. We might have conflicts about the policies, or the interpretation of facts. What did the chairman actually say in the meeting? Those might bring us into conflict with each other related to the task that we are supposed to do. Then there is relationship conflict. It's not about what you're supposed to do. This is more about people's personality. This can actually also happen in the workplace. And it can be applied to situations outside workplaces. People are conflicting, not really because of the concrete things they are supposed to work on. Even in your work, in your coursework groups, for example, this happens. You're not conflicting about that task, but because people have different personalities, people even have different ways of resolving conflicts. These are people that grew up in different families, and now we are bringing them together in a group. Of course, they are going to conflict. Then we have value conflict. This happens a lot in politics, in religion, those things that we believe in. A lot of workplaces do not allow discussions about religion and politics, but still people might disagree, okay, on issues around work. It seems to be they are disagreeing around work, but in actual sense, they are disagreeing because of their values, okay? We might be disagreeing about how to approach, maybe we are doing a research, and we have to decide, do we tell the respondents the truth, or do we tell them the truth later, not just now when they are answering the question? We might disagree, and someone is saying, Neda, you have to tell the truth. But when you look closely at that disagreement, it's not really because of the should we tell the truth now or later, really. It is because of our values. Someone has very strong religious values that say lying is completely wrong. And another person's values say, yes, lying is wrong, but we are going to tell them the truth later. And that is where value conflict might come in. Some people might be saying, let me find another. Yes, some people might be saying, and we've had this a number of times in Makerere University, until the university made it clear that Makerere University is a secular institution, although they do their best to support all the religions. We used to have people that would say it is wrong to set exams on Saturday because Saturday is Sabbath. It is wrong to set exams on Sunday because Sunday we have, when you would listen to their reason, it was not so much about the weekday, but because of their religious beliefs. Okay, so the conflict seems to be about something else, and it's very important for you to know this so that you do not take conflicts at face value when you are working as a conflict resolver with other people. You need to listen very carefully. The conflict that these people have brought, is it the real conflict or there's something else behind? Then we have two more and we'll finish. Sandol differentiates between latent conflicts, manifest conflicts, and aggressive manifest conflicts. Latent conflicts is when conflicts are developing, but it has not yet expressed itself into something that we see. Imagine a couple, okay, husband and wife. This husband comes home late every day. The wife is still being a good wife, she is quiet. She is getting angry, but she has not yet said anything. And the husband is consistently coming late. Okay. Then it becomes a manifest conflict that there she says, why do you come late every day? And then the husband also says, you want to control me, I have to hang out with my friends, you know. The conflict has stopped being latent. Now there is something that we can see. They are actually talking about it and they might be arguing. It might not stop there. It might become an aggressive manifest conflict. They were first of all talking about it, move on to inside their house. Then they start to argue, they raise their voices and the conflict pours out of the house and it goes into the compound and the whole village comes to witness. It has become a violent conflict and it has become destructive. All of us can see it, and unless you pull these two lovebirds apart, they are actually going to destroy each other. We have Nahia in the task asking, to you, madam, as a professional, what do you do when work interferes with your personal religious values as a person? Do you turn it down or? I will tell you now, because you're asking about religious values, or for me, values are values. When my values say something, by the grace of God, I have walked away from money because I know that I am not going to give my best when I am having this conflict in my mind. Okay, that this thing goes against my values, my personal values. I have gotten to the point, and I thank God for that every day, that I have been able to walk away from money. So for me, work is not just about money. It is also about what is my contribution. And if I know that I am not going to give 100%, then I prefer to walk away. As you grow in your field, you will be able to make your own decisions and you will learn from experience. There are times when you might start out by taking on jobs regardless of whether they conflict with your values or your interests, simply because you need the money. But you might end up being burnt once or twice, and then you learn that, okay, this kind of jobs, I don't touch. I would rather eat little money, or I would rather wait and get a better opportunity. Or you might learn to negotiate. You might learn to be a very good negotiator and tell the people that have hired you that you said A, B, C, D, these are the roles, and I would like to really do this job, but this is what my values say. And maybe there are certain things I may not be comfortable with doing, okay? But that means it depends on how you negotiate, okay? How would I best advise you to deal with that? I would advise you that you learn from your experiences. I'm not going to tell you to walk away from money. All I can tell you is to learn yourself. What is most important to you? Is it the money? Is it the work that you're doing? Is it your CV? Is it your values that are important to you? You will learn from your experiences, but I will tell you this tip, that when there is a conflict a number of times between your values and the work, chances are you are going to end up not performing as well as you would have on that job, or you will end up undermining your values and it will still not be good for you. You will still be uncomfortable and you might end up leaving the job anyway. So get into the field and learn to make your own decision. But whenever you make a decision, make sure it is a decision you are willing to stand by, where you're not going to blame other people. Okay? Take personal responsibility. One last classification by some, this was an academic paper by Awan Hussein and Al-Mamari. They talk about conflicts within organizations, okay? And they have summarized this from the work of different authors. We look at 4 types of conflict from their classification. They first talk about intra-personal conflict. Whenever you see the word intra, we are talking about within. Intra means within. Personal is, of course, person, one person in this situation. So within an individual, you might have a conflict because your goals or motives or your wishes, they are being blocked. That might cause you conflict. You want to do something, but the situation is not allowing you. Or you have different choices and it is making it hard for you to make a choice. In that case, it might be one of 3 different types of conflict, but this is one level, intrapersonal, with you, one person within you. It might be an approach conflict. You have 2 or more alternatives and both of them are attractive. You have been given a scholarship to go and do a degree. It is very attractive. You really want to do it. At the same time, you have been given this job. And so you're having a conflict. Should I take the scholarship and go and study? It's very attractive. Or should I take the job and make money? It's very attractive. There's a song that I am reminded of where some girl wants to go to school and then the musician, then some, no offense, Haji shows up and is giving this girl a car. The parents are saying, go and study. The Haji is saying, why don't you just marry me? You're studying so that you can get a house and a car. I have come with a house and a car. Both of them are very attractive. That is an approach conflict. Then there is the avoidance conflict. Remember, these are all happening within you, the individual. This is a conflict situation in which a person has to select between 2 or more alternatives, and both of them are equally negative. Both of them are painful. We call it being between the devil and the deep blue sea. But then, the devil burns you. If you come the other side, you're going to sink in the sea. So it's like being in a burning building. Do you stay in the burning building and you get burnt, Or you jump out of the window and you jump down 3 stories and you break all your bones while you are jumping. 2 alternatives, both very bad. And then you can have the approach, avoidance, conflict. This is when an individual has to choose something that has both, it is one choice, but it has both positive and negative results. Let me give an example. You have got a very nice job. Very nice. They're going to pay you money zotakwatangako ne bajjajjabo tebazikwatangako. But that job is in Arua. And yet you're a student. You okay? That job has both positive and negative results. Very good money, but very far away. Or it is in a war zone. You might actually die. Okay, but it's a must. You have to choose. Let me see what's happening in the, okay. These are just people, cheerleaders in the chat. So that is intrapersonal conflict. It can be approach, 2 alternatives, both equally attractive. It can be avoidance, 2 or more alternatives, both negative. Or approach avoidance, 1 choice, it has both positive and negative aspects. Let us look at the other types of conflicts under Hussein and Al-Mamari. The first one was intrapersonal. Then they also talk about interpersonal. This is our last slide for today. Interpersonal conflict. This is the one we probably recognize most. When people think about conflict, they're usually thinking about interpersonal conflict between 2 or more individuals, because there are certain differences between these 2 or more people. Interpersonal, as in one person and another person, and they have a conflict between them. Then there is intra-group. Remember when we said intra means within, and here we are talking about intra-group. One group, and it is having conflict within it. People might want to be in a certain group because, well, it meets their needs. Yes, we want to be university lecturers. It is very prestigious, you know. But at the same time, there might be things within this group that you don't agree with. Group of Jagala, but you want the group, but there are certain things within this group that you do not agree with. And yet, the group has rules that you must follow. So you might clash. You want to stay within the group, but you're still clashing with maybe your leader, and the leader and the followers are clashing because they want to be in the group, but there are certain things in the group that they do not agree with. Okay, that is intra-group. And then there is inter-group. Earlier we talked about interpersonal. 2 people, 1 person, second person, conflict between them is interpersonal. And here we have intergroup. 1 group, second group, and they have a conflict between them. It might be groups within an organization, for example. There might be different departments, there might be different work teams, but they are groups. And these groups are having conflict between the groups. It may not be personal, but it's because they have different objectives that each group is trying to meet, or they might have different approaches to work that each group is trying to meet, or they might be competing for resources. School of Psychology might be conflicting with social sciences because they are competing for space, for example. 2 groups having a conflict between them. Okay? Yeah, so that is what I had for you today. I can take some questions. I can take some questions. I know people are tired, but yeah, we've come to the end and I am open for questions. You can either put up your hand or you can put a question in the chat.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, Rebecca.
When will the handouts be available at campus? The hard copy.
Certainly this week. I still had just a few things that I wanted to change because I am not using whoever used to teach conflict. And by the way, if you guys have friends in third year, please tell them that it's a different lecturer and therefore the notes are different. Please, please, please make sure you're picking up a set of notes that has my name on the front page. I'm going to make every effort to make sure that it is available this week. I will communicate with the group representatives when I'm able to, when I have been able to give it to the probably the department office, and then someone can pick it and take it to the pick it and take it to the wherever photocopier you're able to access. That's up to you. I have no problem with that. Okay, but I want to make every effort to make it this week. When do I sit on campus? You can, because I teach a lot of students, please let's get ourselves into the habit of making appointments. Okay, I may sit on I'm available on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but it is very good manners for you to make an appointment. You can send me an email. I want to put up, but then people are going to argue that that's too much technology. I want to put up, see if I can put up a Google Calendar so that you can know which days I'm available for an appointment. But as for now, let me put my email here. Okay, so you can send me an email and set an appointment. I can give you an appointment, but most likely it's going to be for Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, I'll probably put up a Google Calendar and I'll communicate so that everyone can know which days are booked, but that will not be today. So even if I say that I sit on campus on Tuesday or Wednesday, chances are you're not going to do so well if you simply walk in. Let us get ourselves into the habit of making appointments, because I might say that I am there and then I'm called away for a department meeting. Right now I'm involved in organizing the International Humanities Conference for our college. So I'm going to be in a lot of those meetings till August. So don't bank on simply walking in and finding me, but making appointments is really good manners. All right. Okay, so if we do not have any other questions, I will stop that here for now and I'll be seeing you. Have a good day. God bless you. Paulo, sigenda kuba kibozi. Lesson bw'eba eweddeko, ssente za gavumenti ziba ziweddeko ze nsasula. Kati ekibozi sobola kiteekamu ssente. Hey, you children. Oh, Shaima, that's very sweet. You love me. Okay, thank you. I love you too.
But sometimes I am more committed to your success than even you. So you might think, omukazi nga she's too tough. Yes, mbesibako because I know what you can be. I know what you can do with this degree. I know what you can do with these skills. So when you feel like I'm being over, it's because I am seeing that dream even for you when sometimes you're not seeing it. Someone being irrational, it doesn't mean talowooza, okay? It means that in that moment, they are not able to think through things very well. God bless you. Now people are just, mbesibako naye mu bulungi, bye. Banamwe bye. Okay, I'll be seeing you guys.